We need to find this place or we'll be late.
Make a left on Astrology Avenue. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant right. It should be right here at 444 Spirit Way. Oh, turn!
It looks like Renee. Yay, we're on time. The James and Kellee Show.
Great, let's start the show. I don't forever find the right turn, Kelly. Is that the right turn?
No, I've never made the right turn.
Just circles. It's all like life.
Hi, honey. How
Hi,
are
honey.
you today?
I'm good today. I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. It was kind of a weekend, huh? Was it an interesting weekend?
Yes, my dog Pearl is she has the cone of her head now, and she's back to normal, and so her energy is hyper because she's been relaxing for a week. So
Right.
I had to give her a couple of sedatives because Daddy was going crazy. It was a bit of a rough weekend with her, but she's fine now.
Oh my gosh! So that puppy stage, it just seems to linger.
Yes, and I went to my bedroom. All my slippers were all laid out right there in the bed for me from her. One of my
God.
buddies.
Oh,
Yeah. So I have her. She's over here eating a bone. So we'll see.
is she? I remember ours. You would eat our shoe trees.
Yes.
They were gone.
Lord brings it out.
Yeah, whatever that is. Oh my gosh. Well, hi. We've got a lot of people here. Hi, Carrie from Brisbane. Hi there. Hi,
Yeah.
Beverly.
Bambi. Yes, Bambi.
Hi, Lizette. Hi, Renee.
Wow.
Hi, everybody. Oh, James.
Rio de Janeiro. Oh my goodness. Tudo bem.
Oh, Melbourne, Australia. Doreen.
Yes, Christy Alley died. Yes, Alan Rose. We're just talking about that before.
Just talking about that. And I had asked James if he knew her, but you did not know her. I didn't know her.
No, I didn't know her. I knew, of course, Ted Danson, but I didn't know Christy Alley.
Right. I bet he's got some interesting thoughts going on.
I'm sure he does.
I bet he does.
I'm supposed to go see them soon, and we gotta get our schedules together and go.
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure. Oh, there's Regina from the Hudson Valley.
Very good. Mary Jane Bennett, Alaska.
Oh,
We got cruise to Alaska next August. Oh, Kelly, you know that, right? You might go.
Oh, I'm going.
Okay, good.
I'm going for sure. That was a fun trip. We did that a few years ago. It was so much fun.
5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Mavis, right? Mavis
with Mavis and who else was there?
Wow.
I can't remember, but it was so much fun. And if you've never been to Alaska, it's a really beautiful place.
And that was a time when my Mavis memorial service where I put in memorial service that we were sitting on this deck and looking down at the dance floor, and I could tell Mavis really wanted to go dancing. So I said, "Madam, can I have this dance?" And we danced formally.
I actually I videoed that. I have it somewhere. I'd have to find it, but I have it somewhere. Yeah, that was a really touching moment.
That was nice. That was a really nice time.
Yeah.
So
sure
this past weekend has been very intense energy for me.
Yes.
There must be a full moon becoming. I don't know if it was a full moon the other night or it was coming up because it's like I feel so intense.
Well, today and tomorrow, I should say Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. You know how I always talk about Gandanta, planets in Gandanta, going from a water sign to a fire sign or a fire sign to a water sign, and it makes everything wobbly and intense. But let's talk about the full moon coming up on Wednesday. So this Wednesday, December 7th, is Pearl Harbor Day, right? Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th. But we have a full moon in Taurus. And remember, everybody, I'm talking about Vedic astrology. And this full moon in Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Taurus rules of all things, James. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Taurus rules, aside from finance and beauty, it rules self-worth. Did you know that?
And your throat. I didn't know self-worth.
Self-worth. It's in our throat. So it's associated with our relationship with ourself, our self-worth, our self-esteem, and our sense of values. So this full moon coming up on Wednesday, December 7th, full moons are emotional enough, right? It's going to really make us look at ourselves. And on top of that, on top of the moon being in Taurus, a full moon in Taurus, it conjuncts Mars in retrograde in Taurus. So a conjunction is when they're right next to each other. So Mars and the moon will be right next to each other. And this time they're at 22 degrees. 22 degrees is a fixed critical degree, and that brings restriction. So, James, you might be feeling that restraint. It's a very powerful, powerful full moon, because when a planet is conjunct, it makes both planets very, very powerful. So now we've got Mars retrograde, very powerful, and the moon very powerful. And at the same time, what makes this even more intense, because that would be intense, but what makes it even more intense is this Wednesday with this full moon, it opposes the sun in Scorpio. Now I'm talking Vedic astrology in Scorpio. So it's opposing. When a planet is opposing the sun, it means that Earth itself finds itself directly between the sun and the moon. And it's in the tail of the scorpion. So it's a tug of war. So this Wednesday, it's going to feel like it's a tug of war with yourself, with others.
Already. Yeah.
You can feel it already. It's going to be, you have to really watch your anger, and you have to watch it because it's going to be intense. And you're going to be triggered by old behaviors. So old behaviors, something's going to get triggered that you might not have looked at in a while, because this full moon brings light to what you are angry about. So you can't keep things bottled up after this moon. This moon's going to kind of unleash a lot of things, which would mean childhood issues, relationships. And it's about taking responsibility, basically taking responsibility for yourself and your actions.
That's what our show is about tonight.
Which is really what it's funny, because when you and I plan these topics, we plan them weeks way before that. I don't have any clue what's going on in the astrology when I plan the topics, but it always seems to fit.
It's wild, isn't it? It's wild.
It is wild. And so this moon is going to make us all look at our behaviors. Yeah. So, and tonight we're talking about old patterns and old behaviors.
Wow. And now Holly Mayer asks, how do you track how astrology affects your personality? Do you have a system?
Well, if it would affect your personality by, depending on what sign you are, where your rising is, where your moon is. And the system I use is called Vedic astrology. So, but how it would affect you personally would be depending on, where your sun is, where your moon is, where your rising is, where all the planets are in your chart. So when I talk about the full moon, or if I talk about any planet, whatever I'm talking about it for the world and in general, but it can affect everybody differently. But for the majority of people, this full moon will be intense. And to answer the question that I know a lot of people are thinking right now, do I put my crystals out? Probably not. I'll tell you why, because it's conjunct Mars, and Mars is so intense. And it's retrograde. I would not put my crystals out this Wednesday.
Kellee, let me ask you a question, which just popped in my head. Anything to do with fires with Mars?
Well, Mars, you bet. I mean, Mars can bring up fires. Absolutely. Fires, explosives, I would say, wars, guns, violence, intensity, those kind of things. Yeah.
Like fire, flames, like fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, wasn't there something, I think it was in North Carolina today, where somebody shot down the power in like part of North Carolina? Yeah. And yeah. Yeah. I mean, crazy things in this world right now, really crazy things. But
how much do you think was because of COVID being put away for, staying at home for so long? Do you think it had anything to do with it?
Possibly.
I think it's a facet of it. I think plus that socialization in some way and everything. I mean, so many things. So
yeah, it's a good question. It's such, this world is very intense.
It's very, very intense. It's very intense. And right now, especially, it's very intense.
It is, but it still means that we can still work on our issues. Just because the world is going, crazy, it's we still have to work on our issues, right? I mean,
our issues. So, why do you think it's so hard to let things go?
Oh, such a great question. I'll tell you why. I think a lot of our wounds come from childhood. And when we're young, our deepest wounds can come. And I want everybody to remember this. If you can be cognizant of some of your wounds, or one of your wounds, if you could even just pick one of your wounds, what age did that occur? Because if it occurred at 5, if it occurred at 8, if it occurred at 10, whatever age, you have to then ask yourself this. let's say something happened at 8 and that's why you carry this big chip on your shoulder and that's why you're so angry and that's why whatever. If you could even whittle it down to an age, but I'd like everybody to really look at whatever the wound was, what age. Would you want to let's say it happened at 8. Would you really want an 8-year-old running your life?
Interesting. I mean, there's so many different topics here within this whole topic.
Yeah.
So many different types of things, but I agree with you. Childhood is so important. The traumas, and I mean, as I often say, we come in very innocent in a way, and the adults to guide us, and the adults are sometimes pretty screwed up.
Exactly. Then they put their stuff on you and their stuff, but nothing is impossible. It is actually very possible to come out of these chains that have binded you for a long time. Everything is possible with that. Don't you agree?
I agree, but I think the person has to want to change.
You have to want to change. And the first thing I'd like to do is say, set an intention.
Yeah.
Set an intention that you are going to be aware that you really want to make some growth in this lifetime, and you want to let go of some old wounds and old patterns. And because
I think that an important part of that, of letting go of that, number one, is to know who you really are. One thing I was thinking to myself, this weekend, and I was talking to my friend Marianne about it, but I'm like, I feel good because I know who I am. I know who I am. And a lot of people don't know who they are. And I think you really first have to get to know who you are in order to start expanding.
Well, and that's the thing. You have to really go deep into who you are. What do you like? It might even start off simply. How do you like, I used to always quote this from Runaway Bride. How do you like your eggs? Because if she was going to marry this guy, he liked his eggs scrambled, or this one liked him hard boiled, or this one, and so she would go with that. She didn't have any self core of who she was, but it's really important that you know thyself. It's everything.
Everything. It's your core. It's your source.
Exactly. And your core is everything in this lifetime. To know yourself in your core.
Just so true. I'm going to throw these things out to your therapist as well. That how many people do you find end up marrying or partnering someone in their parent, one of their parents, the behavior of a parent?
I find it's always, at least the first marriage. It always, because it's or James, if it's not a father or mother that you're picking, it's a sibling.
Yeah.
Particularly if you've had trouble with a sibling. And siblings are just as important as the parents.
Yeah.
Because they can screw you up just as fast. It's like coming into a family system. It's like, what?
I would think, and I'm saying that this weekend about knowing myself, that it's really a good sense for me that I know who I am. I mean, that's a big statement in that I know that who I am. I'm not, and I'm always going to be learning new things about myself, as we all will. We learn new aspects of ourselves and things that excite us. But I have a good core of who I am.
And you're also very open, James, to understanding more about you, about someone, you're extremely non-judgmental and very open to everything.
And to learning.
To learning. And that's the key to life, actually. Stay that way. And you're not judgmental about, if somebody says this or this, you might stop back and you'll think, did I do this? Was it? And then you question things, which is really great. I mean, that's so important. And just remember this, that everything that these wounds stay in your nervous system. Okay. So the reason you want to look at your old wounds is because you want to get it out of your system, basically. So you're not constantly doing this. And there are a few ways to tell that you have an old wound, that an old wound is at play here. And the first one is this: the conflict is constant and it always feels the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The second one is your emotional reaction to something is intense and out of proportion to like whatever seemed to have caused it. Right. And the third one is your reaction is difficult to shift.
Interesting.
And when you have you get triggered, you don't even know you get triggered. You could be watching a movie, you get triggered. You could be in a supermarket, somebody says something, you get triggered. But your reaction is always the same.
Like trigger points.
Trigger points, absolutely.
Things that were not dealt with at all.
Things that were not dealt with. And that's why it's so important that you look at some of these things. And let me give you some examples, okay, of like what we're talking about. that are bad behaviors or old patterns you just want to let go of. Okay, like staying in or choosing a toxic relationship. You know how you pick what you people, I always say take a break, a long break. If you're out of a relationship, don't just jump into one, because you are going to inevitably pick this, and it might look, the package may look different, but it's traditionally it's the same. Okay, so that's one example. Being negative. James, how many times have we just like run from anybody who's negative?
Yeah, can't do it. Can't do
Oh,
it. No,
well, I
can't.
know. What about people that are blamers? What about that as an old pattern?
Yeah, old pattern. Blame
Old
someone,
pattern.
not taking responsibility.
Right, not taking responsibility. Oh, that's a big one. How about rage and anger? Can you even possibly be around anybody that rages?
No, no,
No,
I can't. No,
no,
because they
no.
haven't worked with themselves at all. They just haven't, and they
Right.
blame other people for their own stuff. It's like,
Well, they exactly. Or guilt tripping. How about when people guilt trip?
yeah, they guilt
Like
trip.
that's one. Judgmental. Like, is this something that you do? Here's an easy one that I find really always sets me off. Somebody who's constantly late.
You're so funny because that's one of the things which ticks me off is that someone who makes the time to be someplace,
Right.
you will, if you can't make it or something happens, text them, call them, let them know. I'd say if an electrician come here and he's over the weekend, he goes, I'll see you Monday morning. It's great, 9 o'clock. I'll be great. Never called, never showed up. And at 12 o'clock, I texted the guy and said, are you going to make it today? And he goes, oh no, I was caught up in this other place. I said, well, please let me know when you will show up because I have to move things around. And it just really just, it's
It's goes under. It's so rude. It's so unconscious. I can't stand that one.
I mean, what about the responsibility for another
I
person? Like
know.
consideration for other people too. It's just,
Considerate. Yeah, that's so true. Oh my God. Oh, I can't. I don't like that. Complaining. What about complainers?
I had a friend who was a complainer, and you know her.
Yes, I do. I did.
Right? She had the Jewish guilt thing going on, but one of the things she had going
Right.
on. But it was a physical thing, and Kelly and I actually we had almost she was moved on the floor in Chicago. We had to put her along because she fell on the floor. We had to drag her because she couldn't walk or something. Anyway, she constantly
Terrible.
complains. Every single conversation
Yeah.
was this and that. And I'm like, enough already. And it became victim consciousness. And
Yeah.
and victim consciousness, if you just stay in that role, because people like to have roles, they like to play out these certain roles,
I
and they
know.
get the feedback from it. It pays. There's a payoff. What's the
Right.
payoff? People feel sorry for me. I get empathy from other people. I mean, they look at me and maybe I'm important because I'm a victim. So it's really interesting to be. I can't be around that. I just cannot be around. And as I get older, I have less patience for it. I don't want to be judgmental with it. I'm not, but I just want to say I
Yeah.
don't have patience for it. Life is too
Yeah.
short.
Yeah,
Life,
that really does fall. And the person is not growing. I mean, if you're holding on to any of these that we're talking about, you're not growing. And
right?
we come to this dimension, as tough as this place is, and it's tough to grow,
To transform,
to
to transform
transform. And,
through it.
and the other thing I want to mention, James, is we don't want to take this crap of old behaviors into a new year.
No, we don't.
Like, we're coming to the end of a cycle, end of this year. This was a hard year. And we're going to be doing a show on predictions in the next couple of weeks. But
I want to read something which I found
okay.
today. I was researching it for a little bit. It said, "Why is it so hard to let go of things?" And the answer was, it was a blog someone wrote, we humans really like to cling to things, even things we know are bad for us. One reason is likely because the more we feel like we know ourselves, the more we like ourselves. If we already know ourselves as someone who's in a relationship with a certain other person, we might not know ourselves as well as if that relationship ends. Or if we quit a job, even a job we hate, what will we do for a living then? Or more
Right.
importantly, who will we be then? Because
Right.
for our job when we
If
aren't.
that's such the ego, right?
Right. Knowing ourselves is such an important part of our well-being that letting go of something central to that way we see ourselves can be scary. We're uncertain of who we'll be or how we'll feel because we associate that, the
Yeah.
career, the relationship with who we are. And it's
Yes.
just so interesting
Yeah.
because it's funny. People think of me a lot in the television stuff, and they used to come up to me and they used to put me on a pedestal. And I'm like,
Yeah.
who do you think I am? I'm not this person that you make up, and that's not who I
Right.
am. So one
Right.
day last week, can I hug you? I said, well, I won't break. You can hug me, sure.
Oh,
But people tend to do that. They tend to,
yeah.
make these illusions. I mean, look at the president who was a reality star. I mean, that's
Right.
a lot. I mean,
Right.
it's amazing what the human beings will do. So As a result, we get stuck into clinging to both good and bad things in our lives, afraid to let go because that
Yeah.
becomes our illusion that we're living. And
Yeah.
that's,
And
yeah,
it's such, first, second, third chakras. I mean, it's just keeps you in that mundane world instead of the spiritual world. It just kind of keeps you there,
that's
and
exactly right.
that's and you know why people stay, James? It's comfortable for them, and
Because they're used to it. They get
they're
used to it.
used to it. You
Listen,
know,
I was married to someone for 23 years who lived in a box, and that
oh
box was
yeah.
we eat the same food on Wednesdays and
I
Thursdays.
remember you would tell me that. You'd say, "Well, it's Tuesday. We're having enchiladas."
Yeah, and meatloaf, and then I was like,
Yeah, I remember that.
and it's also it's interesting because it's a lot of it's fear based. It's all fear based.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. It's fear
Fear
based.
is a human emotion, and it's really created by the human part of us.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
fear, that security. It's not our spiritual side because that's just love. There
No.
is no fear there. There's love there,
Yeah.
and you have to go deep into your spirit side in order to understand yourself, to know your soul. It's
Yeah.
to know your soul.
Well, absolutely. And what you're saying is the one of the first things. So first you set your intention. Okay, I really want to pay attention and work on letting go of these old behaviors. And second thing you do is you go inward. You go inward and you listen to this wise voice that you have. Everybody has a wise voice. Everybody has the part of them that knows the right thing to do, that knows what to do. Would you agree with that? Everybody has that.
Totally, totally. It's again, get to know yourself. It's
Get
very
to know yourself. Oh
you have
my God.
you have to be able to be vulnerable because you this is human condition. The human condition
Right.
on this earth is to feel things, to learn things, not to hold yourself back.
Well, absolutely. When you talk about being vulnerable, I said this last week and I'll repeat it. It's worth repeating. If you make yourself vulnerable, what do you risk? You risk being abandoned. By whom? And then you have to really look, are these people you want to be with? Are these people, is this a spouse? Is this a relationship? You have to really look at it like, what are you feeling? And you have to get really comfortable with your feelings because some people, and most people do this, they stuff their feelings down. They stuff them. They don't want to look at them and they just go on with their life. But in the meantime, what's happening is their bodies aren't working right.
No.
People don't want to be around them. I mean, you have all kinds of issues that come out when you don't look at your behavior.
It's also the same thing as we've talked about before about forgiveness. It's the medicine we give ourselves because
Yeah.
the energy can flow easier. But when you're
Yeah.
holding on to old issues, guilt, anger, resentment, whatever it might be, you're blocking energy, and that's not natural for us.
Oh God, it's definitely not. No, it's definitely not.
I have a
Um,
couple of things I found also about
okay.
how do you let go of a toxic past. One,
Uh,
turn letting go of the past into a must.
mm,
Identify emotional habits, as you mentioned.
yeah.
Condition your mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Create empowering rituals, which I love
Oh, I
that.
love that. Now let's talk about what a power empowering ritual would be, because
Okay.
that's a really good tip.
Well, for me, I'd say one of those would be visualization of my future, of a happy moment,
Oh,
and creating happy moments. How will
yeah.
someone feel when I do something, or how And I don't know,
Right.
just different ways you feel happy about things, not
Hmm.
material things you can do for yourself that'll make you happy. What are you passionate about? See
Yeah.
yourself doing something you're passionate about. That's,
Yes.
I think is a really is good
That's
thing.
a really good thing.
Also, I think it's important that you shift your focus. I thought
Hmm.
that was one of the more important things in my
Yeah.
life was to become more objective. When something happens, as I do every day now, and it's
Hmm.
really helped me. So look at this world as a play, as a theater, and I'm just watching what's going on. I'm not getting involved in it. I get involved to a point, but
Yeah.
it's really an illusion. I'm watching a play play out. And I'm watching the actors on stage, and I have to interact with these people too. But again, I know who I am, and I'm aware of what's going on. I'm not
Hmm.
emotionally into it, but I'm aware of what's happening. So yeah, I think the more objective you can be, and
Yeah.
you open up your mind that way to possibilities. Teach yourself to be present because a lot of people live in the past and they
Yes.
repeat the past or the future. There is no past, there's no future. All there is now. All there is now. So live in the moment now. Learn to live in now because
Mhm.
that's what matters most. And something I also here's most people can't appreciate. Here we go. Most people can't let go of the past because they don't appreciate their present. Reframing our relationship with our past requires us to stop thinking of how things should be and accept them for what they are. As Dalai Lama said, attachment is the origin, the root of suffering. Hence, it is a cause of suffering. Surround yourself with positive people. And being part of this human condition, it not only is it the world of addictions, but it's also the world of attachments. We've got to let
Yes,
go of attachments in this world, and that's a big thing
it's a big thing.
because there's nothing there. All there is love. So it's very interesting. Yeah, the attachment part. And then I thought of said something, Kelly, today as I was looking at this. All of a sudden, it hit me. I think it's a really important thing every day for everybody in a practice to find something every day that you're in awe about.
I love that. Something that inspires you, something that you're in awe of.
Wow. Like yesterday, I was looking at the cloud formation, like wow. And the other day, I was looking at the tree, the colors of the leaves, and how they fell on the ground, and how beautiful that looks. And just wow, the miracle of life all around us.
Yeah,
That we got to be awe-inspired,
yeah,
with changing seasons and those so many
yeah.
different things happen. And don't get so caught up in the inside, but look outside too. So that's the world. And a lot of times, and this is from I think the Oprah show years ago, it's not about you.
Yes,
It's not about you. It's like,
right.
oh, what they do to me. It's not about you. Sometimes some people are having a bad day and they just act out, but it's not about you. And if someone acts badly to me, I will stop and say, "Excuse me, that's not allowed. Don't speak to me that way." And like when this guy, this electrician does show up, I will say to him in person, and he's a nice guy, but I will say, "Listen, my time's valuable as well as yours, and I really appreciate the respect." It's a
There you go. Perfect. Laurel Davies asked, "What if others are determined to affect you that won't let go?"
Why do you let them affect you? You have the power, so why are you giving?
Yes, and that's it right there. You have the power.
Why are you giving your power away to this other person? That's the wrong thing to do. You got to empower yourself. They have
Yeah.
nothing more than you have. You have it. You're looking outside of yourself for power. Wrong.
This
Wrong.
is a great question. This is from Kim Ann Snodgrass. She says, "James, at what age do you think you found that you liked yourself and knew who you were?"
8 years old.
There's that number again, 8.
8 years old.
Tell me how that happened.
I was always bullied, always as a kid. My brother beat me up, and I was the
Mm.
shortest thing at school. Um, I just always had a sense of who I was. I don't know what it was, but I was always had an excitement about life, imagination, great imagination. All those planets in Leo, the creative
Yeah.
imagination. And I went to a Catholic school, first grade, 6 years old. It was tough. Never really played with people. I wasn't really. They didn't. I didn't have a lot of friends. And second grade was worse. We have the nuns, and then I just became my own best friend, and I just started. I had a great imagination, great daydreaming. But at the 8 years of age, I kind of realized who I was. I kind of realized, in a way,
Yeah.
I thought so interesting because I felt more of myself then and very innocent. And I knew that I went to it like I was at a Catholic school, but I didn't belong there because this wasn't my
Mhm.
choosing. I knew that I didn't belong in this place. I just knew it. And I never fit in. I never felt like I fit in. No matter where I went, I didn't fit in. And whether it was, and I
And you
still,
were comfortable with that.
I'm okay with I'm very okay with that. I'm very okay with
I don't want to fit in.
I don't want to fit in. No, thank you. I'm unique. And everyone's
Right.
and celebrate
Right.
uniqueness and don't let anyone ever tear you down your uniqueness, no matter who you are, because you're made that way. You're designed that way, universally designed in your uniqueness, so that you can affect other people. That can lighten up
Yes.
someone's soul in some way. And that's
Yes.
God doesn't make mistakes. There are no
Well,
mistakes.
and in fact, one of the negatives about old patterns is somebody who's a perfectionist.
Yeah, yeah. I was married to
And
that.
oh,
Yes.
were you really? Oh, that's right.
Triple,
What am I
triple,
saying?
triple Virgo. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. So this is a great question. Kyle Hodges says, "Is it too late at age 65 to be true to yourself?" Hell no. This is a great time to be, speaking from experience, it's a great time to be true to yourself at any age, but 65, it's not too late. Start now. And I'll tell you what will happen, Kyle. People will be like this.
Yeah.
It's the greatest thing to see when you make a change. Everybody else has to shift around you. You have the power.
Interesting. When I divorced, and I was 60 years old, and I'm the happiest I've ever been, and it was really interesting to see myself clearly in what I was going through. But then also, I saw there were certain people in my life that did not support me, not in my relationship, but just didn't support whatever it might be. And we all have that, and we got to remember because I used to support them in many ways, and we have to remember that we should be with people in our lives that support us, that we are mutually supportive. And Kelly and I do that with each other. We're mutually supportive
Constantly. Yeah.
constantly. But you don't want people taking and
No,
disabling you. You don't need
no.
that. Don't try to hold on to that because it'll never
Mm-mm.
happen. No one can love you more than you can love yourself.
Well, and that's the thing. Who knows you better than you?
exactly.
I mean, really, it's something to really think about. Teresa Ekno Caravelli, she said, Kelly, I watched the documentary Stutz and it was the best. I enjoyed him and his therapies. I want all my young adult sons to watch because there's so much to learn. So Stutz is a great Netflix documentary on Phil Stutz, a really good therapist, a really great therapist in LA. And it's Jonah Hill brought this, it was his therapist. And definitely watch Stutz if you get a chance. I mean, 20 minutes at a time was probably a lot to take, but it's really good. You'll learn a lot about yourself.
Wow. Wow.
So, okay. Here we go. David Vigiano. Hi, David.
Nice picture, David.
I find the hardest things to let go of are when I don't get the closure I want or think I need from a person. I always say if I could have one final conversation with that person to clear the air and get or receive forgiveness, I could move on. But some people won't ever or can't give you what you think you need from them. So you hold on hoping one day that you'll get from them what you need to move on, but it never comes. So my question is how to let go and accept you'll never get what you
Which one? Well, David, I love you dearly, but I disagree, and I will tell you this because it's almost like you're looking for that perfect person or that perfect situation, and that's not going to happen until you go. Really, you have to find the perfection within first. You really have to, and then I tell you, they come at you like flies.
Oh yeah.
It's really true. So you got to find that specialness inside yourself first, and what you want another person, you're going to find in yourself first. And I think we also have to change our mindset. We got to look for the silver lining in everything. Try to be the optimist because it can easily be pessimistic, especially when things have happened to us. But why are we not better to ourselves, relationship with ourselves, and look around and see what we do have.
Mm-hmm.
And gratitude for what we do have. What we draw to us that which we are.
Yeah.
So we really got to, as Kelly said earlier, got to dig deep and see where.
Got to go in. I mean, you have to go in.
It's a release. It's a release. It's an opening.
Yeah.
And these are opportunities to grow. So if you go with the mindset, I'm never going to meet anyone or never going to have this job, then you never will, because we are creating our lives right now as we sit here. We're creating thoughts. So we want to, I used to say this all the time, and Kelly, you've heard this before. We say, some certain people like to listen to 88.9 on the radio, which is fear and depression and upsetment, or they want to go 106.7, which is joy and happiness and fun. I'm going to go to 106.7. That's all I want. And it's a vibration. It's a magnetism.
Mm-hmm.
And you first have to have it within here to find it with someone else. You first have to have it in here and magnetize that out. And, the universal law of like attracts like. You will attract to you those beings who will be perfect for you, or the job that'll be perfect for you. And that's how it works. And it might not work the way we think of it. It never will. Life never works the way you want it to.
No.
I knew I'm going to be well known if I was an actor. That's what I thought, or as a writer. Well, I know I'd be talking to dead people.
But you know what, James, that goes along with what you watch the things that you tell yourself. Watch your self-talk, because if you are, like if you have self-pity or victim talk, or you're feeling defensive talk, or whatever it is, it's self-talk is powerful. And so it shapes the way that you relate to the world. So you really want to make sure with your self-talk that you're saying positive things about to you and to the world, and really keeping that. And as you just mentioned, it raises your vibration when you do that. It's really important.
True. And I think we also tend to live in the past, and we can't live in the past because the past had its, the reason for being. It helps us to be who we are today. We'll never repeat the past. We keep on growing and transforming. And I think every day we should have something we can smile about ourselves. We talk about this, what we can do, these rituals. Every day I have my lovely little mantra, which the cup of healthy am I, happy am I, holy am I. And,
you mean this one right here?
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
I love this. And mine is making me happy. It's filled with ginger ale and water, my favorite drink.
That's one of my favorite.
I know.
Yes. And then, another one I do is I used to have vision boards. I used to have a vision board.
That's a great idea, actually.
And I also would journal what I want. And I did that. I think I mentioned this on this show many, many years ago, over 20 something years ago. I think when I first, it has to be close to 40 now, because I moved to LA to be a writer, sitcom writer. And I remember I took the Greyhound bus to Santa Barbara. Never been there. And I took a journal, and I didn't know anything about psychic work or something, but I made a list of things that I wanted in my life. I think it was 12 items. And believe it or not, I found that book in my closet in a box of memorabilia, and I found it. And I read it for the first time in 40 years. I got everything I wrote in that list. Not the way I wanted it, but I want to be before the public. I want to help to serve the public to change. That was one of them. I want to be known as a writer. That was another one. I wanted to do producing. That was another one that came. So all of these things came about. I want to own a house, but they all came about, but not in the way I thought it was. It's really true. We're divinely led. As I always say, that the universe conspires for our highest good. Always.
And when your vibration is like that, James, and you're in a positive state, funny thing how that works. Positive things start to come.
Always. And surrender. Big one, surrendering, letting go. So letting go of that which does not serve you. Let go of that which does not serve your highest good.
And there's another one too. Let go of that. And the other one is constantly practice forgiveness. Hit the forgiveness button constantly, because people don't know what they're doing. You've got to forgive for yourself, and it's a constant.
And this energy, this came up recently too with Kelly. I'm sure two of you and I talk about it, but lately, and things stayed with me for like, I don't know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and that forgiveness one stayed with me for a while. But lately, it's been worry, because I've done a lot of I just did my healing class, my certification class the other day, and I did readings for people, but it was energetic readings, and it was really interesting how much worry energy was around these healers, all around their head and their shoulders. And I could tell someone was having a back problem, a neck problem. And it was always worry energy. And it wasn't their energy. It was someone else's energy, with who they work with, their family, their partners.
So they would pick this up, all the worry energy.
They pick it up because they worry. They pick up these things. And if we're empathetic, which most people here are very sensitive, you're going to pick up that energy. So that will, if you will, triple what if you have a negative feeling about yourself, that's going to make it worse.
Well, and if you're an empath and if you're picking up worry, you have to ask yourself, is this my worry, or is this somebody else's worry? Whose worry is this? Who does this belong to?
I do that almost on a daily basis.
I do too.
Always, because I know my energy. And when we go back to know thyself be true, if you know yourself enough, you know that's not your energy, because you don't feel that way.
Right. Oh my gosh. Okay. Allison Stanford says, I had a lot of neglect. That's a big one, growing up for love. And as a result, I'm choosing relationships where the person can't love me with problems of their own. I haven't been able to break this cycle. So neglect is worse than abuse. So did you know that, James? Neglect is up there with number one. If you're neglected, you don't know you exist. So Allison, here's what you have to do, honey. You have to know you exist. You have to go inward. You have to write down on a journal. Everybody can do this. What are the things that you love the most about you? And you may have trouble even coming up with that, because if you were neglected, you don't know you exist. And therefore you would pick people that would keep you in that same dynamic. So it's going to make everybody feel uncomfortable. What James and I are asking you to do is change. And it makes people uncomfortable, because they don't know what the change is going to be or what it's going to feel like. And that's what we call in existential psychology is taking a leap of faith. You want to take a leap of faith that James and I know what we're talking about, make a change. It's time to make a change.
I always say to my students, you got to jump in the pool.
You have to jump in the pool.
Medium, you never know what's going to happen, but you have faith in that sense that you're not in this alone. The spirit around you will always take care of you. And you have to do that, and you can't look for others to save you. You got to save yourself.
You've got to save yourself. And so really, if you have neglect growing up, if neglect is your button, and that's it's a real thing. You know who taught me the most about this, James, was Shirley, Dr. Shirley, because she had so much neglect, and I learned so much about neglect from her, actually. It's fascinating.
I have a little exercise that she can do for neglect.
Okay, great.
What is her name? I'm sorry.
Her name is Allison.
Allison. So Allison, this is a good one. So what you can practice is you can just close your eyes and imagine that you're, I don't know, in a garden somewhere, and you have your arms are full, and it's a baby you're holding in swaddling clothes or blanket. And I want you to look down at that baby. How do you feel looking at a newborn's face and that baby? And you know how you feel about a baby. That's yourself. Look at your own self as a baby. And how will you?
I love that.
Okay.
That's a great exercise.
Use that every day if you have to. And every day come up with something positive about yourself. So neglect also, I think, is something hidden from us. So you got to go in and find it, and it makes us stronger. Those that will hurt, the things that will make us stronger, it'll make you a strong person. So
Yeah.
that neglect was that was what you came into to learn. Remember, it's all learning something. You have to learn something from that. That's why it was chosen. That's why your soul chose that.
Absolutely. And then if we can use the lens and go back further than that, as you said, I mean, and really on the other side, what did you choose? Well, I think I'm going to learn about neglect because possibly you neglected others in a previous life. In this lifetime, all right, I'm going to experience it. So there are a lot of reasons with this. Oh, and definitely Lori Count says people with no empathy or compassion, I can't be around them anymore. I agree. I agree. I agree. And
Oh,
compassion for yourself and everything that you have gone through is equally important to everything. It's so important.
and lately, I've been like I've told you before, but like my electrician, but even customer service, when I go and order a hamburger somewhere, and if they're just like, yeah, okay, what do you want? I say, excuse me, hello. Take time to connect with a person. Don't just and nowadays with social media and known as how to treat humans, I think it's really important that we just stop them and just say, hi, how are you? Look into my eyes. What about this? And just and it's so interesting when I do that to young kids, 20s, 30s, and they stop for a moment, like, huh? Well, this is weird. But then they appreciate that someone touched their heart, someone saw them as a human instead of a machine.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. They've got to do that to change the world.
So, Renee Hounsel, can we use muscle testing to see if we've truly let go of a cycle, like a check in how far we've progressed? Or is muscle testing more about allowing the residue stimulus that settled in the physical? I think you can absolutely use muscle testing. You know who does that, Renee? Is Kelly. Remember Kelly? She was on our show. Kelly.
Kelly Russell does.
Yes, Kelly Russell does that for emotions. Yes, you can definitely do it, Renee. It's a great question.
Yeah. I just want to read a couple of things here also. Mindfulness helps you to focus on the present and have more control over your thoughts. The ability to focus your mind on thoughts of your choice will see, that's it. You'll focus on thoughts that you choose to think of and help you strong dwelling on your past, not dwelling on your past. Practice mindful exercises when you first find yourself stuck in your past or a meaning to life. So, what is that fulfilling? What are those thoughts of the past? What is that fulfilling? What need is that fulfilling in the present day?
Right.
See, what is that?
Exactly.
It's really important
In the present day. It's so true.
because we bring the past into the present.
Right. Um,
Holly Mayer here. We're talking about self-awareness being the key to spiritual growth. How does the climbing epidemic of autism play into evolution of spirit as a part diagnostic criteria? People on this autistic spectrum lack self-awareness and often can't achieve it with much guidance.
well, I feel that people that come in on the spectrum are here to help us have compassion, help us have empathy. They're not from here. They're literally from another galaxy that have come onto Earth to raise our consciousness in other ways, maybe technology, maybe to teach them love, what love is. But ultimately, I believe that they're here to teach us things.
Yeah, I number one going to say there's no accidents in the universe.
No.
God didn't make accidents.
Mm-mm.
And I think that everything is evolution. And we have to remember that we come back here in some lifetimes, we come back to really expand the mental body or the emotional body or the physical body or the spiritual body. Sometimes we come back just to that one body. And I sometimes think autistic and people, I think they're way beyond us. But I think,
Oh, they're so far ahead.
yeah,
Many of them have never been here, so they're not used to having a body,
yeah.
and
When I was
they're usually very bright.
when I was developing as a medium, I used to have people call them ETs come all the time to my development circle, and they were very much mental beings that I communicated with, but they were there all the time, and it just shows you how the human is just so in their own little world. There's so much
Yes.
out there that we don't understand, but be open to all the different changes of things because we don't have all the answers.
Right, right. So Sandy Grund says life is a risk, and not everyone is the same as the person who hurt you. We've got to give others that chance and take that risk. Absolutely. Absolutely. Life is a risk.
I don't know if I'd use the word risk because I've changed over the years. Kelly, you know this. I see things as opportunities.
That's even a better one. Yeah.
Things were really shitty, which they can be. Well, things happen as they do.
Hmm.
Opportunity. So I was like, okay, what is the opportunity here that I'm given to look at this? How do I look at this as a positive, negative? What's the opportunity? Why is it coming to my life, my path this way? And
And
what?
absolutely. And one of the things too that I just remembered is that you can slow things down. So let's say you are you one of your behavioral patterns is to jump immediately, like go after somebody immediately. What if you slow things down? Because when you slow things down, breathing slows things down, gives your brain time to think. And if you can think in that moment, you can make a different decision, a different choice that can change everything. And then from there, the more times you react like that, the more you're learning, the more you're growing. And it can just be in small increments, but that's really important stuff. Baby steps are important with this.
So I 100% agree with you. This goes back to the observation because my good friend Scott, who I've known 40 years, he said to me once, and he's an attorney friend of mine, and he said, what people tend to do is have knee-jerk reactions. Now,
Right.
funny, knee-jerk. He goes,
Right.
best thing is, and the best things he's ever taught me, said, don't, when someone says something to you or does something, don't immediately have that emotional knee-jerk reaction that you used to have in the past. Could be with family, friends, partners. Stop, pause, and I always say, take several breaths.
Right.
It's time to observe it and see what you want to do with it. Because from my past, when someone would piss me off in the past, I used to sit with it for a while and then get really angry. I didn't say anything. But now it's completely different. Now I observe it and
Yeah.
I've stopped and have boundaries. I have proper boundaries. And you also have to remember, everybody, that when you have proper boundaries, you're also teaching that person. Like
Yes.
my electrician, I'm going to teach him that's not respectful to another person, and that's
Right.
going to be hurtful. So
Right.
you're teaching them as well.
Right, right. So true. Nancy Nanva says if we've been living a habitual life based on avoidance of the unpleasantness, how on earth would you begin to open up to repressed emotions? Great question, Nancy. Here's what you need to do. So you've really stuffed things down, and that's what I've been talking about here. You want to start allowing, you set the intention to allow yourself to feel, just to feel. It might take some time if you have repressed everything, but in fact, a therapist would be great. And sometimes within therapy, it does take a little bit of time. And there's different techniques. There's tapping. There's all kinds of things that a therapist can bring to your life that can help. But I would say now, Nancy, since you're asking the question, it's not time to avoid. It's really time to go inward.
So I have an exercise I used in my workshops. I
Okay.
think it's very good for everybody here.
Okay.
And what it is, you have 3 columns on a piece of paper, or 3 columns, right? And then you make items like say 1 to 10 if you want, but how many if you want. The first column should be titled fears, and write down a fear that you have. 1, fear, whatever, people, 2, whatever it might be, those fears, right?
Mhm.
Now the second one is love. So what do you have to do to change that fear into love? What
Mhm.
action do you have to do? Okay. So you write down what the action is.
Yeah.
And the third column I title life. Now, after you change the fear, transform the fear into love, how would that affect your life then?
How would that affect your life?
And it is really
Yeah.
profound, and
Yeah.
people
That's
will
powerful.
people change. I mean, in the
Yeah.
workshop, that, and it's just, it's sometimes the truth is so simple, but the first step in healing is awareness. Sometimes we're just not aware, like you're saying, we have to go down and see what the emotional hurt is, the trauma
Yeah.
back, and sometimes
Yeah.
our memory, has to be jogged a little
Well,
bit.
and the thing is, if you have stuffed it down and repressed it, I promise you, you will get triggered, and all of a sudden, kaboom comes out.
True. It's so true. It's true. Yes, it's very, very true. Yes, I have found that I rarely will get really angry, but I have found something came out of me like a year ago when someone took advantage of me, and it hasn't happened in years. And this old trigger went,
Oh
and
yeah,
yeah, I told you about this.
yeah, oh yeah,
Oh yeah, I exploded, and I was like, but that person wouldn't have heard me any other way. I just know it. They wouldn't have heard
yeah.
this conversation because they weren't there. So yeah, it's in the game of life and how to play it, right?
Yeah, it's so true, James. The game of life and how to play it.
Everybody, it's really important that you do your work here. It's really important that you go deep down, and you're on the show tonight. Really go deep down into your own self, and get away from blaming others. And I'm like this with my parents. When life comes over, when you're over and go into the other side of your life,
Mhm.
you can't stand there and say, "Oh, I did that because my mother did this, my father wasn't there for that." You have to
Right.
stand there and be your own judge and jury, and you have to take responsibility for your own choices in life.
Yeah.
So do it while you're here now. Do the work now on yourself, because no one knows you better than yourself. Do the
Yeah.
work, and you
And
will.
don't waste time. Just do it. Just start to become aware of what choices you've made. And by the way, everything you can really move mountains and change. You can do that. Nothing has to be permanent here. Ardelia Cannon. Hi, Ardelia from
I
Australia.
Wow.
A silver lining with COVID. Over the past few years, I've learned to go within. Good for you. Yes, I still have a lot of work, but I've been able to have a good look at myself, what relationships that don't serve me well, and to remove them from my life, including family. I
Right?
thank you, Kellee and James, for being here with us for the past few years. I truly feel blessed to have both of you on our way to be there for us. Oh, thank you, Ardelia. I'm
Yeah.
so glad to hear that. But you're absolutely right. You have to go in. You can't avoid that. You have to go inward.
And the thing which I think is kind of cool, and maybe because I've been a medium for 40 years and had to go through the development part of
Right.
living in the nothingness, the nothingness. It's a real fun journey. It's like
Yes.
a roller coaster. Wow, what am I going to find about myself? And
Yes.
no fear. That's just fear is a
No.
ego appearing real.
Yeah.
But it's really an interesting, self-discovery. And I think you really enjoy going to spaces and places that you've existed for many, many millions of years, folks. You've
Right.
been a soul for millions of lifetimes. This is only not the first lifetime.
Oh,
So,
please.
you wouldn't be on this Zoom call right now, this show right
Right. So this is interesting, James. This is from Cindy Bitto. She says, accept the apology you'll never get. And is that true? Because if I waited for an apology from certain people, I mean, James, you and I both have been crushed. Our hearts have been broken. Soul crushed on so many levels at so many times. If I waited for an apology, I wouldn't be sitting right here. I mean,
Thanks, Dean. I got you. Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
There's a therapy. This, Kelly, probably better than I would, but it really works well too. In a workshop, I did this where you look back at a traumatic situation in your life. Could be
Mhm.
a child or when you're a young adult, or it can be you're angry at someone, and that was
Yeah.
not resolved. Go back in your mind to play that scene out, but then change it around and make it a positive ending to that situation. What would have
That's
changed?
what they say in somatic experience, actually. We do that work with somatic experience.
It really
If
is. It
you could do
really
it, or the on the other side is if you really have so much rage for somebody and you really have to get that out, what would you envision yourself? Like the Incredible Hulk beating this person up? All right, do it. Get it out of your system. And
Yeah.
it's okay. And then what happens is you're able to move on.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
like the one the scene that you go to because I've done it with people and it's amazing. And there's a scene in which many times childhood comes up or first
Yeah.
relationship, and they were angry at this person, whatever, or someone took their ice cream cone, whatever. And what would happen if it changed around that you gave them the ice cream cone? Oh my God.
Diffuses the energy. It's like
It
completely.
completely changes them.
Yeah.
It works, folks. It completely
Yeah.
changes things up. Try that. It really changes. When I forgave a member of my family for something, it really changed things up. And I got to see this person in a very, very, very different light that was holding on to things so long. And I was able to then open up and see the truth behind this situation, which because I was holding on so tight, I wasn't able to. The tighter we hold on, the more we can't see it. Same, so really let go.
And in fact, so Lisa Jamusian says, I find it most difficult to forgive myself for past choices. How do we let that go?
Well, honey, you're here to grow. We're all, we're in school.
We're human. It's called human school.
Take
We
tests
did.
all the time. And you know what? We're human. We take things we learn. Sometimes the best ways of learning are what we call failures.
Totally.
That's the best learning. I've been through
Right.
two marriages. One of the best learning
Me
experiences.
too.
I've had some great friendships. I had great people in my life who turned out to be terrible
Right.
people. And listen,
We've all been betrayed, right, James?
I hired
Please.
that's one of my Ghost Whisperer story where I hired these executive producers. I hired them, and then the show Jennifer Love You and I made the show very successful publicity.
Yeah,
And stuff.
very
A year later, they tried turning around and firing me because of the budget. I'm like, excuse me, I hired you. So I mean, I understand what that's about. Of course, they didn't because CBS said no, but humans can be very interesting. And
Yeah.
always remember what's the intention behind an act. What's the intention? And remember someone's history. When you meet somebody, you have to remember that you're seeing their whole history. It's not just that I say people always come with a moving van when you meet. at all,
That's so true.
Oh yes, I've been doing. I didn't do my evening of spirit last week because Spirit said not to, which is the first time that's happened. So because they wanted to save it for the 16th, so we're going to do a VIP evening of spirit messages and teaching on the 16th. So you can sign up at vanprod.com.
Oh, that's going to be perfect.
Great.
That's great. And next week, James, we're going to be doing Talking to Heaven, your first book. Which, if you guys have not read this book, Talking to Heaven. It's the best book. I love that book so much, James.
It's a simple book, I must say. I didn't want to write it, but I was kind of forced to write it. But
I'm so glad you did. But we'll be like, people will ask us questions next week, and we'll answer your questions about heaven. And
you'll love it. Great read. It's an easy read. You'll understand more about mediumship, about my journey, and then Ted Danson played me in the movie too. So you got to check that out.
That's right.
Yeah, they made a movie based, and it was a #1 CBS miniseries for a while.
And it was like a 6-hour miniseries, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were going to make it a regular movie, but it was such great material they found. And I worked with a writer from New York, who was a Broadway writer. He wrote Agnes of God, John Peelmeyer, and he was great to work with. He came to my house in Laguna. We sat down. We threw ideas of my past experiences I had, and it was a great miniseries. So it was a #1 miniseries of CBS for years. Before that was Jesus of Nazareth. That was
wow.
Because of that miniseries, I got Ghost Whisperer. They wanted to do a regular series, so the movie's good too. So check out the book. And
the movie's really good too. Oh gosh,
I have to reread my book. It's been so long.
I love that book. Let's see. James, here it's a question for you. Today's on Soul Care. You had a question on grief tools discussed in a book written by you. Did you figure out what that was? Could it be relating to placing a loved one that passed a photo to a locket to help grief? No.
Yeah, you did ask me that this afternoon. I said, come tonight, because I said, I remember it was Healing Grief. It was a book.
It was Healing Grief. Okay.
Yeah, it was Healing Grief. And remember that when Spirit, I remember the question, thank you for remembering that. When they come back and communicate with us, they come back with memories. They can't make memories where they are now in the spirit realms. They made them here. So when they come back, the sentimentality, the memories that cheered them up, that come in with that. And also those little things that you did in their name. Really are the biggest things. So I remember I had a relationship with a guy, and his name was John. He was a school teacher, very smart man, and he thought my work was kind of silly, and then he passed over, and he's come back, and he's around me a lot now. He's been over there a long time, and he said, I really have such a different respect for you now, and I've learned so much, and so it's always something to learn, always something new and exciting.
Always.
I mean, that's why we're here, folks. We don't be victims. We can be in control of ourselves. We really can.
So true. Susan Forbes says, great show. Thank you, sweet souls. Texas-sized love to you. Oh, that's so sweet. Soul Care, so powerful. Thank you. Sparkles, precious souls. Thank you, Susan.
I'm going to be doing a show on Thursdays, so in January.
I know. I heard that today. That's going to be great. And then I do my show Thursday night. So Monday and Thursday.
Thursdays. You'll be at the Soul Care at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's going to be a good one. It's going to be topics, and it'll be a lot to do with my work. So that'll be
your classes.
My school. There'll be a lot with school to do with the school, and I don't know. Spirit just gave me that a week ago to think about that for next year. I'll do that.
Gosh. Okay. Lebo Musi. Thank you so much, Kellee and James, for your uplifting talks. One always leaves feeling lighter and positive. And that's why we do this work. We want that.
And I think part of it is I think that Kellee and I are able to open you up to the memory of your true soul, of your soul self. And that's what I think it is. We say, well, because it's really your essence of who you really are, not who you are, but who you really are.
Boy, that is actually it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
What you just said. Yeah.
What it is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, join me Thursday. I'll be on Ask Me Anything at 7 p.m. Central Time, taking your questions. And what are you doing tomorrow? You're doing something tomorrow?
Am I doing something tomorrow? I'm Pearl to the Park. I know that.
You're taking Pearl to the Park. Okay. Watch Wednesday. Wednesday is the big full moon. So be a great day to, set your intentions of letting go of old behaviors. Great day for that.
God love you, everybody. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now and Beyond, featuring spiritual medium and master teacher James Van Praagh and spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.
That was great. Maybe we changed some lives.
And maybe opened up some minds.
Which way do I turn?
Right. I mean left.